I also screened 30 minutes of my film, a rough cut at the time. And so I've never done anything like that before, kind of a filmmaker's dream. So the goal has always been with this project to have as many people trip down the rabbit hole as possible. And for a selfish reason, I want the transition from fiat to Bitcoin to be as smooth as it possibly can. The more people have Bitcoin, the more decentralized the wealth is, the more strongholds we're gonna have, and the smoother the transition is going to be. That's what I thought could be the most impactful thing. Educate the masses on inflation, educate them on why Bitcoin can't be printed and why some of the things they've heard about it might be wrong. What if the price of everything didn't go up anymore? It just stayed the same, there was no more inflation. How does that sound? Oh, that sounds really great, actually, I think inflation's a scary thing. It's probably one of those things in life that you don't want to think about. In a lot of ways, it's like death. It's inevitable, but you don't want to believe it's true, at least not for you. Every money that's ever been printed always ends in disaster, absolute disaster. And that's where we're heading.
Shooter, welcome back to the Bitcoin Infinity Show. Thank you for joining us.
Yo, Luke, Knut, it's always a good time. Thank you for having me. I appreciate your time too, man.
So good to have you back, man. It's been a while. When did we last see you? What we were saying, Madeira?
Yeah, Madeira. So it must have been March. So
yeah.
9 months ago, more than 9 months ago.
Yeah. How did you like Madeira?
I mean, Madeira is beautiful. I wish I had more time to spend there, especially as a cinematographer, I wish I had more time to kind of go around the island and see all the different beauties that it has to offer. So other than that, it was amazing. I also screened 30 minutes of my film, a rough cut at the time. And so I've never done anything like that before in a movie theater. So it's kind of a filmmaker's dream. So yeah, Madeira was special for many, many reasons. I'm sure you love it there too.
Yeah, we were super busy, but we heard a lot already back then when you showed those 30 minutes about the movie, the movie No More Inflation, if you don't know, and everyone who saw that is dude, Shooter's film is this is next level stuff. Everyone seemed to love it. So when did you? So tell us about the movie. Tell us about how your last year's been, and when did it premiere? How did it come to be? All the things.
Right. So most people know by now I made a 10-minute film about El Salvador about 2 years ago that I had published. Nayib Bukele retweeted it. That kind of created some more attention, from Bitcoiners and encouraging me to make a full-length film. So 2 years ago, I started planning this film, raising money, filming, traveling, editing, all that stuff. And so, it just published it November 21st. So it's been about a month. And I've been doing going around now and doing the podcast and promoting it a bit. But so far it's been going good. Lots of people have been watching it. Lots of people have been sharing it with their loved ones. And it seems actually the most common thing I've heard is that the wives love it. I guess most Bitcoiners' wives, they're interested in Bitcoin because their husband is interested in Bitcoin, but they're not that interested in Bitcoin. But apparently, they stay engaged and they really loved it, and it helps actually visually connect the dots about a lot of things that they've been hearing about. So anyway, so far it's been really good. It's doing exactly what I wanted it to do, which is reach the average person, keep them engaged, explain the problem of inflation and the solution of Bitcoin in a very simple and emotional, human to human way. So yeah, that's what I did. I traveled the world. Interviewed 44 people that share their stories about living with different intensities of inflation, or how that money that's being printed that caused that inflation affects war or food and health and foreign aid and COVID and bailouts. And then same thing with Bitcoin. Interviewed people that have personal stories about how it's helping them in El Salvador, how they're using it to reduce pollution in North Dakota off of flare gas, how it's bringing energy to people in Kenya, helping people escape their dictator countries. So basically, the film is a collection of stories that covers inflation and covers Bitcoin.
No, I just love the title, no more inflation. It's so spot on. That's what Bitcoin's all about. You fix the problem of inflation for everyone on Earth. It's so simple when you put it like that. That is what it's all about. We're fixing inflation.
It kind of reminds me of this.
Yeah,
That's my
kind of.
that's
Comes
my
to mind.
everything exactly.
No,
Yeah.
yeah. Your outfit is so great tonight. So tell us a little more about how the film came to be, and like
Yeah.
yeah, where did this project start, and like um, yeah, I mean, the book killer thing, but like, tell us about the journey, brother.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, like you're saying, no more inflation was the line that I found stuck with most people that I spoke to. Whether it was a cashier for 10 seconds or a friend of mine, they'd be like, what is this Bitcoin thing about? And I would say, okay, well, what if the price of everything didn't go up anymore? Like it just stayed the same. Like there was no more inflation. How does that sound? Oh, that sounds like really great, actually. I mean, anybody but like a college educated economist will agree with you that that sounds great. And so I realized that was kind of the best entry point in for Bitcoin. So when I was planning this film and I realized I was going to spend maybe a year or two making it, I thought, okay, well, I want to make the thing that I think can have the biggest impact possible. So I knew it had to be related to Bitcoin. And then, yeah, like I was mentioning, inflation just seemed like it's the best entry point. And so you'll notice there's no mention of Bitcoin at all in the title of the film. And if you watch the film at nomoreinflation.com, you'll see there's no mention of Bitcoin for the first half of the movie. Because again, I want to draw people in with inflation. I want to make them understand the problem of inflation, because in my opinion, it's the biggest problem in the world for, not just because it's expensive for you to live, but because also for the things that it pays for. It funds the machine that you don't like, And so, yeah, so I think that's really what I wanted to set out to do. That's what I thought could be the most impactful thing. Educate the masses on inflation, educate them on why Bitcoin can't be printed and why some of the things they've heard about it might be wrong, like it's bad for the earth, it's only for criminals, it's too volatile, all these common things that someone will just have popped in their brain, whenever they hear Bitcoin. And so, so I started again, like writing all of this and planning it, 2 years ago, October 2022. I started raising money in January. I started filming in April, and then April all through, the release, I was either, picking up interviews or editing. And so, yeah, I went to, Guatemala, Jamaica, Argentina, Kenya, El Salvador, Latvia, Dubai, Italy. Man, I'm probably missing a few there, and a handful of states in the US too. And it was a great experience, man. 2 years. I mean, imagine like any artist to say, hey, you have 2 years to create the best thing you possibly can. Go, so absolute dream. I met so many people. I really am proud of what I created. I feel like it met the vision that I had for it. And so, yeah, now I'm really content. And now it's the second half of the battle, which is actually, getting it out to the masses. So that's kind of the journey in a nutshell.
Yeah. So like, open the tab now. Watch the movie right after you watch this, like nomoreinflation.com. It's great. I mean, and you're such a good content creator, man, and like such a good filmmaker. Like I've like every single thing I've seen that you've done is like, it's stunning. You really know your craft. That little video from Riga 2 years ago, like it's amazing. Like no, so so go check out the website. This guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah, and the cool thing is, I made the website too. Like all that stuff, I made all that. I integrated with Zaprite and WooCommerce, so you can pay $9.99 to stream the film. You get access to it for 7 days or 3 logins, so you can share the password that you get with people. You get an 8.21% discount if you pay in Lightning, and it's awesome for so many reasons. Because I everyone always tells me that they appreciate my work, and I appreciate you saying that, because other people need to hear that sometimes to actually go and watch. But all around, this is such a Bitcoin project. Again, like when you pay to stream the film right now, that money is coming straight to me. There's no platform in the middle. There's nothing like that, and probably in the future, I mean, the goal is to get it on Netflix or somewhere that has a really, really, really mass reach. Yeah. And so, but for now, like you can literally directly, give your money to me in appreciation for the film. And so, yeah, nomoreinflation.com. I think the website's beautiful. The trailers there are so great. And there's so many really good people in the film. I mean, from Bitcoiners to non-Bitcoiners. You got Graham Hancock in there talking about foreign aid. He wrote a book about it in 1989 that Alex Gladstein took a lot of inspiration from. I didn't know until I read Gladstein's Hidden Repression book. Robert Malone's in there, who's more known for developing the mRNA technology and speaking out during COVID. But he is like really fascinated with hyperinflation and like totalitarian regimes and how those things go together. And so he speaks on that. You got Tour de Meester, Rockstar Dev, Texas Slim, Alex Gladstein. You got a bunch of people in there. It's yeah. So definitely check it out.
Yeah, definitely. Did you say 8.21% discount?
I sure did.
That's
I thought you'd appreciate
number.
that.
Yeah, I love it.
I didn't just change it for the show. It's been like that. So
fantastic. We love it. Yeah. You mentioned Zaprite there. How does that work?
Okay.
Tell us more about that, please.
You pay Zaprite $25 a month, and then Zaprite lets you connect a bunch of different services. So, for example, I can have my own Lightning node running, but I didn't go through all of that. What I have is I have my Zaprite connected to my Strike. So technically, there's some custodian there. It could be more sovereign, but super easy, like connect it to my Strike in like 5 seconds, right? And then all of a sudden, now when I check out, I can select the Lightning or the Bitcoin options. In terms of credit cards, because the website takes cards too, Zaprite connects to Stripe, which is more of a fiat rail, right? And so basically, yeah, I set up a Stripe account, I set up a Strike account, and then Zaprite lets me connect to those within a few seconds. Zaprite has a plugin for WordPress that connects to WooCommerce. So now in my WooCommerce dashboard, Zaprite is a checkout, a payment option. So I just have to toggle that on, and then Zaprite takes the rest, takes it from there. So literally took me like 10 minutes to integrate it. And in my opinion, it's like the smoothest checkout process of any website, in my opinion. I have given them feedback. I think they can do a few things to make sure the user doesn't have to scroll at all during the checkout process. Currently, the user has to do just a little bit of scrolling. But other than that, it's literally like tap, 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 and you're done, man. So Zaprite's an awesome, awesome tool. I think any Bitcoiners out there, especially if you want to accept fiat and Bitcoin in like a same rail, like the same checkout process, and make it super easy. It's been super easy for me. And the guys have also been very encouraging and giving me good energy about the film too. So I like those guys a lot.
Yeah, I know. I think the reason Knut asked about this was that we have our own kind of website and setup and everything, but we haven't. We looked at Zaprite, but we couldn't tell if on the fiat side they did euros and we're based in Europe and everything. I think maybe we'll have to look into it, but it does everything, right? It's fiat, so credit cards and Bitcoin, right? So people can pay you in the way that's convenient for them, right?
Yeah, like Apple Pay, Google Pay, Cash App Pay, it's all right there. So anybody who's going to pay with a card, it's couldn't be easier. So yeah, in my opinion, those guys, and again, they charge you $25 a month, right? There's no percentage or anything like that. So it's totally worth it to me.
And how about Strike? How does that work in what countries does it work? Because
right.
It doesn't work in every country yet, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure. I thought they work in many, many, many countries. I thought they had rolled out some global thing. So I'm not sure exactly which countries it works with, but it's just like any other custodial wallet, right? So when a payment comes through in Lightning, I got a notification on my Strike that the sats have hit my account. And then, once it hits 1 million sats, then I move it on chain.
Oh, okay,
So,
but I meant more which countries have you tried it out in, and where did it fail and where did it work?
Oh, I see. I think as the receiver, it works, period, because Zaprite is generating a Lightning invoice. So Zaprite generates a Lightning invoice. Obviously, if you have a Lightning wallet, you're going to pay that. And so I think it's only, really, there's only restricted if you're trying to create an account and be a receiver on Strike, right? I could go to Madeira and somebody who's in a restricted area who technically can't use Strike can still scan my Lightning invoice and pay me, right? So Yeah, that's how that works.
Yeah, again, I think the intricacies of this practicality stuff is like we just share a common interest here. But it's awesome that people can go directly and support you directly. I mean, this is value for value. I mean, like you're setting a price for your thing, and people have to pay that and everything. But it's direct to you. There's no middleman. It's awesome. And I want to. My first question is like the top billing. Your advertising is Graham Hancock, which last time we talked about our shared interest for a lot of his work. How was it talking to him and making that connection?
Yeah. I think in the past, I've been nervous for different interviews, not necessarily like they're famous people, but they're just important interviews, and I know that I need to get this one. And so I've kind of gone through, failures and successes in that. And what I took away was to just be present, prepare the questions, know where you want the conversation to go, know what kind of messages you're looking for in this person, and then just be present and really listen to what they're saying. And so, yeah, with Graham, it was like, fortunately, like everything was super smooth. The thing with him is like, getting him was such a long shot. I didn't have any connection to him whatsoever, and I just knew he was going to be in a particular place for a conference, and I just hung out for days, dude. Like literally just days, man, just hung out and got his contact information after talking to him for a few seconds. And then same thing when I did the interview, there was like, we were going to do it at this time, but he ended up like signing books for like 4 hours, dude, like fucking 4 hours. And then he looked tired, and I was like, well, I don't want to push him. And then he like disappeared for like 2 hours. And then he calls me and he's like, hey man, sorry about that. It got kind of crazy, but I'm here, and I'm ready for you. Come on over here, So basically it was like the whole time was just me, like just chilling. And like, I think that can create some anxiety, and that can make you feel like, oh fuck, man, like, I really got to nail this thing. But fortunately, I was super calm. I was super grateful for the experience, and it went really well. We just had like anyone else I interview, I always just try to have a natural conversation. Like, you don't even need to prepare. Like, you should know all of these things already that you're going to be discussing. You shouldn't be discussing anything you don't really know deep down in your soul. And so, yeah, it was a dream come true, man. And, I think he also is an artist in a certain way. He was a journalist and a writer. And I think he looks at me, a younger man, kind of sees himself. And, so I think he likes giving back to people like that and helping. And so, yeah, it was an awesome I never, ever, ever thought I would interview Graham Hancock for anything. So it's pretty cool, man. It was a cool experience. And like, if people watch the film, you'll see towards the end, there's like a sequence of shots of me like hugging different interviewees. And so, and then that alone is so cool, just to be like, man, thank you so much. And like, hug the guy, like so awesome. So yeah, it was a dream I didn't even know I had come true, man. Pretty awesome.
Yeah, we often have similar experiences here doing the show. I mean, Knut's been in this longer, but we've Bitcoin has taken us a lot of great places and gotten us in front of a lot of great people. And for you, that sounds like an absolute dream. Did you stay on topic, as in like inflation and economics and this and that, or did you cover any of his more interesting subjects?
Yeah. So, yeah, we did both of those things. And so again, he's not necessarily a Bitcoiner. He's open-minded. So he is open to it. He actually was asking me a lot of questions about it. But, I didn't approach him like, hey, I'm making a film about inflation and Bitcoin and foreign aid, you want to be in it. It was just like, hey, I'm making a film about foreign aid, like that's what the film is about. And in his segment, it is about that. And so that's how I think I was able to get some of these people involved, was like, look, I don't need you to talk about Bitcoin. I don't need you to talk about inflation. I just need you to talk about foreign aid. And then, of course, though, like, in keeping the conversation casual and natural, when his brain goes to, archaeology or bureaucracy or war or psychedelics, then I go with him for a bit, right? Like, okay, let him develop that, and then I can bring it back. So Yeah, if you go to nomoreinflation.com and you watch the trailer and you click on the title, that'll take you to my YouTube channel. There's a 21, probably it's a 21-minute interview, extended interview with Graham, where we go through like his history. A lot of people don't even know he wrote a book about foreign aid, right? But he actually started as a journalist working in Africa, working on like the wealth gap between the developing countries, and it was his work over there actually that introduced him to Ethiopia's claim for the lost Ark of the Covenant, and then that put him on the path of archaeology. So his first big book was about foreign aid, and then after that, it was just like all ancient civilizations and psychedelics and stuff. So he details that history a bit, and he talks about just bureaucracy in general, war, psychedelics, and a bunch of other stuff. So yeah, if you're a Graham Hancock fan, definitely go check out that interview there. You'll really like it.
No, you got it. I actually had no idea you had the extended interview up. I'll be watching it, if not tonight, tomorrow, or something like that. But yeah, man, that's fantastic. And well, do you know if he's seen the finished product? Like, I assume you at least let him know that it was out and everything, right?
Yeah, I mean that's a whole nother hurdle, right? It was like actually coming to the point of like, hey, look, this is the whole scope of the project, and I just want to make sure you're cool with it, right? That happened a while ago. But yes, he saw a 20-minute cut, like a refined version of what I showed in Madeira. He gave some good feedback, and then I don't know if he's seen the final cut. He's seen like the almost final cut. Yeah, he seemed really happy with it. He could relate with it because he knows that when he was younger, he was able to afford a house and start having a family at 30 years old on his income. And now he's just seeing his kids who are like, getting into their 40s, finally able to do it, and like barely, like just barely, So I think he can relate with it too. And yeah, he's expressed interest in helping me, get the film out there. And so I'm just being patient. That's kind of one of those things where you're just patient and you wait. And so either way, though, yeah, I'm super grateful for his time. And like as you get older, I think you have less energy and you have less time. And he's a busy guy, and he must have literally been working on season 2 of Ancient Apocalypse because he just finished it recently. So he squeezed me in. Like, it's so cool, man. But yeah, he has seen it. He seems to enjoy it. And I think it's just a matter of, inflation isn't going anywhere and Bitcoin isn't going anywhere, right? So I think there's some price, Bitcoin price, USD price that like Graham Hancock's going to be messaging me again, right? Like, hey, just saw Bitcoin's at $150,000. Thought about you. We need to talk about this, So that's one of the great things, I guess, of doing something in Bitcoin is like Bitcoin, and especially the price for normies, that becomes like your cheerleader, right? It becomes your marketer forever. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm rooting for you on that one, that he gets back in contact and wants to talk more. But I'm also interested sort of in the 2 parts of the film. Like, how did you build up the inflation case, basically? Because for us Bitcoiners, it's pretty self-evident at this point, that inflation is a problem, and even normies, like they see it's happening, right? But how did you tell the story about what's going on?
Right. So I think inflation is a scary thing. It's probably one of those things in life that you don't want to think about. It's like in a lot of ways, it's like death. It's like inevitable, but you don't want to believe it's true, at least not for you. Like, like I'm not going to die, never going to die. And so the way I presented it was just kind of like, if the average person actually thought about it, what would be their logical sequence of questions, right? And so the first question that the film really poses is like if this doesn't stop, what does life look like next, right? And so the film starts in like Western countries with single-digit inflation. So you hear from Ioni Appelberg, and he's talking about life in Sweden, and Seb Bunny from Canada, and Monica Bora from the U.S. And it's what we all feel in the Western countries, right? Hard to afford a family, hard to afford a house, food's starting to get kind of expensive, like really now just starting to barely make ends meet. Okay, but what next? Like, if this thing doesn't stop, right? Like what happens? And so we go into Jamaica, where there's double-digit inflation, where you're skipping meals, right? There's more health issues. like less hope in general, because it's like, this thing's not going away, right? So then we go triple digit inflation in Argentina, quadruple digit in Venezuela, and like the Weimar Republic, and so the next question is, okay, well, shit, things get really bad, but like, why is this actually happening? What is causing inflation? And it's obviously just as simple as money printing. So it covers that and the gold standard a bit, and it also covers like, well, if it's just money printing, why are they printing it? Like, this is the same, like these questions, this is what I was hearing from normal people, literally, right? I'm like, yeah, because they're getting it, they're deciding where to spend it. Like, they're actually the ones receiving it. And so the film goes into where this money is spent, and the majority is spent in war, health, which also relates to food, foreign aid. Like, there's so much debt, right? Like that developing countries, and all countries, but developing countries have. And then, of course, bailouts. And so that's kind of how I present inflation. Like, this is what it looks like as it gets worse. Money printing is why it's happening. This is where that money is being spent. And every money that's ever been printed always ends in like disaster, absolute disaster. And that's where we're heading. And so that perfectly segues us into Bitcoin, where, we think, okay, fine. If this inflation thing is simply due to money printing, then what if we had a money that couldn't be printed? And so the film, the same characters that were explaining life and how difficult it is with inflation in these different countries, and how it's impacting all of these different areas in our life, like war and health and so on, they opine on what life might be like if there was no inflation. So like a regular lady in Jamaica is like, hey, I go to the store and milk is $1 today, and it's $1 tomorrow, and it's $1 next year. Wow, that's amazing. She's like, I don't know if that's actually real. Sounds like a utopian world, right? And it's so crazy that is actually a crazy thought, that milk would stay the same price, And the film, of course, doesn't even touch on deflation. I feel like that's just too mind-blowing. Like, people will be like, okay, now you're talking about fucking magic and wizards and shit. You know what I mean? So no more inflation, I think, was the line for now. So anyway, that's how we segue into Bitcoin. And the film briefly describes why Bitcoin can't be printed. And then it knocks out the common things that I would hear from people. But like, okay, well, doesn't it use a lot of energy? Why is it doing that? Isn't that bad for the earth? Well, I heard criminals are using it. Oh man, but like, it always goes up and down and up and down and up and down. Like, I don't know if I can feel comfortable. And so really, that's how the whole film is presented. It's like the most common sequence of questions that I've heard from people. And then literally just, going and finding stories to tell that. So yeah, that's kind of how I presented it, man.
Hello there. You should use code Infinity like everywhere on the internet. For instance, for the MicroStrategy Bitcoin for Corporations conference. For BTC Prague, for BTC Hell, come to Helsinki in August. And make sure to check out Stamp Seed, which is a fantastic little seed plate. You can get the Infinity over 21 million special plates that we collaborated with them in making. Use code Infinity for a discount. Same thing goes for our favorite hardware wallet, the Bitbox 02. Go to bitbox.swiss to get that. The Bitcoin Advisor for Bitcoin inheritance planning and so on and so forth. And general advice, bitcoinadvisor.com. And make sure to like, subscribe, and brush your teeth and all that. Go to bitcoininfinity.com and get some stuff and some books. Great to have you here.
This reminds me of one of the first things, like this is pre-Bitcoin stuff, like that I found on YouTube. Something, and even before, like the Zeitgeist movies, if you remember those, where a guy perfectly describes the problem, but then the solution is commie utopia, and it doesn't really work, But but even before that, there was a little movie called Money as Debt, where he explains fractional reserve banking. The guy explains fractional reserve banking, and it's so, and that's like I think that had played a huge part in why I found Bitcoin. I was primed for it because I had seen that thing, and it's so simple. Like fractional reserve banking started with gold was used as money, but it was hard and heavy to carry around. It wasn't very easily divisible and verifiable and all that. So instead, you took your gold and you stored it in a vault somewhere. So the guy who owned the vault gave you a receipt. I owe you this much gold, and then people realized they could trade the receipts instead of trading the actual gold, because the receipts didn't weigh as much as the gold. So that's the portability thing. So that's how fiat begins. People trading receipts for gold, so they could redeem the gold by giving the receipt back. Until the banker realized that he could give out more receipts than he actually had gold in the vault, because the risk that everyone would withdraw their gold at the same time was extremely low. So he could do this. He could print more bills than he actually had gold in his vaults, which of course made the banker extremely rich. And he could promise like interest and stuff on this, which he created out of thin air. So he was getting the customers in on the scheme without them knowing that they were in on the scheme, because he could pay them interest, because the interest wasn't really there. It was just conjured out of thin air. So this is how the monetary bill comes into being. And of course, when you had competing monies and the competing bankers, every once in a while there was a bank run, and everyone decided that, oh, holy shit, this guy is probably up to no good. What if we all withdraw our gold at the same time? And then the guy had to flee, because he got like a lynch mob with pitchforks and torches after him, because they realized that he'd been fucking people over for a long time. And this happened on many occasions in many countries over and over again, until the invention of the central bank, which is basically an institution that saves the asshole from the people who just want their money back. But at the end of the day, all inflation is theft. There is no way around that. If you can't redeem the receipt for the gold that you put into the bank, you're being stolen from. And there's like no middle ground whatsoever. If this banker prints a single dollar more than he has in his vaults, then it's fraud. And every bank in the world does. It's just mind-blowing. We're all being fucked over because we're being stolen from at all times. And Bitcoin is the remedy, because you can't print more of it. It's even better than gold, because gold, if the gold price goes up, people will find more gold. With Bitcoin, it doesn't matter, because you have the difficulty adjustment algorithm. And have you seen that that latest meme around that? It was so great. It's like a Venn diagram on. I think I saw it on Twitter. It's like people who oppose Bitcoin and people who understand the difficulty adjustment algorithm. And in the intersection, this very thin intersection, is like no one I've ever met. Because if you understand the difficulty adjustment algorithm, you cannot be against Bitcoin. Like, you cannot have, there is no way of understanding this thing and having arguments against Bitcoin. It just doesn't work. If you understand the difficulty adjustment algorithm, you understand why Bitcoin is the remedy to inflation, because you understand everything divided by 21 million, right? You understand that this is unstoppable. You understand why you can't print more of it. And it's just, for the first time in history, we have something that is tamper-proof and that is asshole-proof. And we've never had that in money. It's always been abused. And which means that like 5,000 years of history is like, there's so much misinformation in it, because the winner writes history, right? And the winner always had a certain percentage of assholiness that took them where they went, because they were funded. Like, all wars were funded and prolonged by inflation to some extent. Like the First World War is called the Great War at the time. It arguably never ended. It's a war between the governments of the world and their populations, and it's still ongoing because they're still stealing from us. They're still the assholes. They're still just fucking stealing our stuff through this evil scheme that never ends. And we've been living in it for so many generations now that it took like a genius like Satoshi Nakamoto to like finally pop that stupid bubble that everyone's been living in forever, and most of the world still believes in it. It's just a handful of Bitcoiners here and there that actually get it and that actually are trying to get out of it. But at the end of the day, it's all theft. We're all just being abused. We're rape victims, for fuck's sake. Yeah, end of rant. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the crazy thing is it's also like being gaslit at the same time, because most people, I mean, now they're more aware of it, but they weren't even aware that they were being stolen from, right? It's just like prices go up. It's natural. It's like gravity. It's like, the waves. And even the people that work at the banks, right? Like these mortgage brokers and people that deal in, paperwork for debt, like a lot of them don't even connect the dots that they're the ones contributing to inflation. So the abusers, most of them probably aren't actually aware of what they're doing. It's like a beautiful scam. It's a beautiful, beautiful scam. It's the best scam ever, man. And I think the first iteration of fiat was like paper was in China in like the 1600s or something like that. And this dude had a kingdom where like, if you ever brought any goods in from out of the kingdom, you had to go take it to him and he would give you the paper value of it in exchange. So he amassed like, all this beautiful jewelry and all these assets and everything. And again, like the people didn't understand what was happening. So yeah, it is theft. And again, it's a gaslighting too, because then of course, like anybody who's being stolen from consistently and more over time, you're going to be upset. You're going to be irritated. Your life is probably going to be more difficult to be kept together. And that's going to cause a bunch of other issues. Like in my opinion, the way I see it, it's a very simple storyline. The government prints money to go to war. They know it's going to cause inflation. So then they start making food cheaper, which causes more health problems. Oh shit, but there's still inflation. We need to have cheap goods. So we need to go to these other countries and then loan them money to produce the things that we want over here. Oh fuck, that causes more inflation. Then you have a bubble, and then you bail out and then you bail out. It's like literally the root of all of it to me is just seems like war. It's like just you wanted to go to war, you want to go to war, you want to spend all this money, and it's going to cause inflation, and it's going to cause inflation. And so all of this is you pulling all these levers and putting all these band-aids and all these things, thinking that you can run the whole world, you can decide for the whole world and make it a better place where it's like, okay, no, we can print and we can have inflation and we can figure out how to make this shit work for everybody. Like it just doesn't work, man. So yeah, it's theft. Of course it's theft. It's theft of like everything you have. It's like your mind, like most people, again, if you ask the average person, how would you feel if there was no more inflation? Man, they would feel 10 times better. Right, no, just immediately.
I love these simple questions. Like that's how you put, that's how you point out that the emperor is still naked, by asking the simplest questions you can have. Like one we're proud of having put in the book is the question, like, if you practice doing something, do you usually get better or worse at doing that thing? That's the question we ask. Like, and of course the answer is you get better at doing things. Otherwise, like that's why you practice in the first place, right? Yeah. So why aren't all prices falling forever? That's the follow-up question. Because that's like people produce and transport goods and services. That's what we do. We practice doing that by doing it. And then we get better at doing it. And we get even better when we trade with one another and form these networks and stuff. So why isn't everything getting cheaper? It should. It should, right? And if you measure in Bitcoin, it is getting cheaper. So that reality is already here. It was here all along. It's just that we didn't have a way of measuring properly. Like we've always lived in this idiotic scheme that is, once you see it, it's so damn hard to unsee. Like people steal from us by pretending that a number is higher than it actually is, and they use that to fund the fucking mass murder. It's just brutal, and it's so sick, and the lie is so big, so that everyone, like, I think that has a large role in why people can't see it, because it's like it's too horrible.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, you'll see the the brand of the film, the red and the black, is very like horror movie. Again, like when I was thinking, what kind of movie is this? At least the first half, man, it's a horror movie. It is like the things they're doing, man, and things that I don't even include in the film. I saw this film about foreign aid in Jamaica about how they were importing powdered milk at a subsidized rate, and so people stopped buying real milk in Jamaica. And so the dairy farmers out there literally went out of business, and they had to send their cows for slaughter. You know, used to having this cow as an asset, this thing, maybe even like a part of, you feel like part of your family. It provides for you, you know, and then no one wants the milk anymore, so you got to send it to make fucking hamburgers. Like, and that's just animals, right? Not to mention all the wars and all the humans and like. So yeah, it's a fucking horror movie, man. Money printing is. It causes the most suffering in the world, for sure, hands down.
Yeah, I saw an interview with Jordan Peele the other day, and where he's asked the question, well, like, what's the difference between a horror movie and a comedy? Because he went from comedy to horror, right? And like the only difference is the music. Like it's the soundtrack. Just change the soundtrack and use. Yeah, and I'm not suggesting you should turn No More Inflation into a comedy, because it's not a comedy. It's actually happening. So it is horror. So I hope Bitcoin is well, maybe not comedy, but maybe rom-com, bromance-com. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I like the funny thing is I love comedy, man, but for whatever reason, like I always gravitated towards more like emotional stories. I feel like that's what grabbed people more. And so, yeah, definitely once we get into the Bitcoin side of things, it's much more hopeful. I mean, not in so many ways. The film is told through like a narrator. It's like kind of my story of like, you know, young man in the US, life's getting more and more difficult, you know, like being able to afford a house and kids seems like further and further away. And so that's kind of the journey that encapsulates this whole film. And so as we're going through the Bitcoin stuff and as we reach the end of it, you know, and it's true for me too, like, you know, Bitcoin for me has shown me that there is a way to have a family and to have a house. If you know, if I want to buy a house, you know, depends. See how fast Bitcoin keeps going up. Maybe I'll just keep renting. But at the time, you know, it was like literally though, like if someone doesn't have Bitcoin, if they're not saving their money in Bitcoin and they want to buy a house, it's never going to happen. Like it's never, ever going to happen. And so, you know, by the end of the film, you know, that's what the narrator's journey is. You know, he's going through like, you know, I see this as being a possibility. And it really is true. Like my journey talking to all these people about inflation made it more clear in my brain, and about Bitcoin made it more clear in my brain. And all these stories helped me, you know, have more hope for the future. Fortunately for me, I learned about all of these money printing and inflation and spending problems while I was learning about Bitcoin. But fuck, man, like if I only knew the problems and there was no solution, like I wouldn't want to have kids. Why? For what, man? Like fuck, dude. Like they're gonna be breaking rocks, man. Like shit, you know. And so anyway, Bitcoin really gave me that hope of like, not only is it possible for me to have that, but there's actually a world that I can put my kids into that they could actually excel and maybe make the world a better place. You know, so. Yeah, there's definitely a yin and yang in the film. The first half is definitely dark. You know, that was the idea, is draw out as many people into the deep waters, make them fully understand the weight of the problem. And this is going to be another one of my sayings, by the way. The value of a solution is equal to the size of the problem it fixes, right? So when people understand how big of a problem inflation is, they will understand everything divided by 21 million, right? So yeah, that's something that's stuck in my brain.
Dude, that is such a good saying. What did you say? The value of the solution is equal to the size of the problem it fixes.
And that's it.
Holy
yeah,
fuck,
if you're in a
that's good.
desert and you're fucking about to die, it's a pretty big problem. You know, a bottle of water is very valuable.
Yeah,
That
it's
solution,
worth one life. That's what that
it
bottle of water
fixes
is.
a
Yeah.
pretty big fucking problem. It's pretty valuable. You probably give
Yeah.
everything you have. You probably give your foot, you know,
It's a bit
for
of
that
an
bottle
ego
of water.
problem, but still a problem, yes. So would you say that No More Inflation is a holiday movie, or like a Christmas movie?
Yeah, exactly. I got to put some Santa scenes in there.
No, but seriously, I think that it sounds like a Christmas movie. It starts out with like, hey, everything sucks. But then again, everything doesn't suck because we have Bitcoin. Merry Christmas. Like, happy solstice, Luke.
Yeah.
This is...
I mean, it's tricky because at the end of the day, I think what all this boils down to is personal responsibility. And that's a deep, difficult topic for a lot of people. All of these things are difficult topics, you know, like inflation, like you really want to think about that, especially with Trump and Vivek and Elon, they're supposed to be cutting stuff, right? But if they get in there and things keep going up in price, what are you going to do, right? How is your life going to change? How are you going to manage it? And no one's thinking about that, dude. Like no one is, because I think it's too scary. And the same thing, the film, anyway, I think it is a good holiday film. I think you should watch it with your family because they should be aware of all these things. And I think it will deepen your Bitcoin conversations like really, really quickly. But it does end in personal responsibility that at the end of the day, this is about you doing your own research and making decisions for yourself. You know, that's the only way we get out of this thing. And that's how, you know, you want to fight back, you want to join in this fight. You don't have to fight anymore. You just take responsibility for your life. That's how you fight now. So anyway, it's a lot of really difficult topics to throw at somebody during the holidays when they're probably getting drunk and trying to forget everything, you know. But I don't know, maybe it does segue into a good, you know, New Year's resolution of I will take more responsibility for my life. I will understand what this problem of inflation is better, and I will try to position myself the best I possibly can for whatever inflation might be coming. Like, there's your fucking New Year's resolution, man. Empty the gyms. Just think about that.
You know, you just created the perfect ad for the Bitcoin, the inverse of Clown World, because that was like the TLDR on our book. It really was. Well, don't you think so, Luke?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. When you're saying that, I'm just like, man, we're so aligned. Like, and I love that part because it's like we're coming at this like making our own projects and doing this all at kind of the same time. And I mean, I don't know when your film was exactly finished, but I mean, we finished writing this book back in, I guess, May, but like final edits in like June, July and stuff, and released in August, and you're releasing in November and everything. So clearly we've got like some of the same ideas all kicking around in our brains, but we're working on completely different things, but basically coming to the exact same conclusion. Yeah. I love it, man. Ever since the first time we talked, I know we're all like super aligned and on this mission, and I just love it. And I mean, you're a master filmmaker, and we're doing our best with these books and stuff. And I really hope that between all of this, our listeners, your viewers, take up the challenge and that this really does something. Good on you, man. This is really awesome to hear.
Yeah, thanks, man. Again, I think that's why I'm confident in the film, because I feel like, and likely your book too. I haven't had a chance to read that one yet, but I think it encapsulates, and probably your book does too, like a lot of the things that we talk about and that we feel and that we know as Bitcoiners going down the rabbit hole. And so I think that's why other Bitcoiners are going to resonate with it and they're going to want to share it, because it's like, look, I've been trying to tell you that, you know, this Bitcoin thing isn't bad for energy. You know, watch this. You know, look at these dudes fucking extracting methane and propane and all kinds of other shit from these flares. And you see the fucking flare stack. Like, instead of a flame being this high, it's like this high. You know, you see these people in Africa, what it means to actually bring electricity to them. So again, I think like we are all on the same. Yeah, we are all seeing these things. The difficult part is actually getting the average person, like at least interested, to take that responsibility to dive down the rabbit hole. But yeah, I agree. Like, man, like everybody I think does what they can do best. Like for me, I just film is what I've been doing. And, you know, when I thought about how can I contribute to the Bitcoin space, that's just what I know how to do, you know? And you guys are doing what you guys need to do too. Like, we're all important. We all need to be doing these things. And yeah, it's awesome to know we're all man, fundamentally kind of on the same page, and we're pushing through this thing together. It's awesome. It makes me really optimistic. Like the people like you and us, like you and me and everyone else that, in my opinion, like you probably couldn't stop yourself from writing and working on Bitcoin if you wanted to, you become infected. No. So people say like Bitcoin hasn't won yet because we still need to do things. And I'm like, well, yeah, but we're fucking infected, man. And it keeps infecting people, and go ahead and try and stop if you wanted to, like, so that's what I find the most bullish. And, and anyway, I know it takes dedication for you guys to do the book and also for the show, discipline. Those things are, persistence. Those things are not easy. So I commend you guys, and yeah, thank you for doing what you do too, man. Like you guys inspire me too,
Oh, thank you, man. It means a lot coming from you. I mean, this is more than coincidences. It's like a mind meld, like a global mind meld of the Bitcoiners. We all like all the true people. They come to the same conclusions sooner or later. And the funny thing is that we get there via very different paths. Like we all have our own little path, but we end up in the same place. And that is like that we all benefit if we help one another. And everything is fucking dandy in Bitcoin land. So what's your favorite holiday movie?
Ooh. Holiday movie, The Grinch is good with Jim Carrey. That's a good one.
That's a good one.
What about you?
Yeah, I'm going to cut out Die Hard 2 and Home Alone 2. I'm not going to watch those two this year. I'm going to watch No More Inflation instead. But I'm still watching Gremlins 2 because it's the best fucking sequel ever. But I would say that Die Hard is probably my favorite holiday movie. Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. Home Alone's always good. But yeah, The Grinch, man, I don't know. Jim Carrey is just so good in that one.
Yeah, The Grinch is good too. Yeah. But Gremlins 1 and 2, if you haven't seen them, you should definitely check them out. Those
I've seen the first one.
Hollywood.
I don't think I've seen the second one.
The second one is like all fourth wall breaking, like 3 decades before Deadpool, and it's hilarious.
Awesome. I'm definitely going to check that one out, man.
Our listeners are going to be confused because this will be out in like the middle of January. But we're recording this.
You're allowed to watch Gremlins 2 in January too. And definitely No More Inflation.
Absolutely. I'd like to come back to one point that you mentioned a while back in kind of your explanation of how you built this all up. You mentioned saying that you explain how money printing is the cause of inflation, but I'm curious to how you did it basically, because online, talking to other people who are more economically literate than necessarily others, but they still don't understand inflation. They think it comes from greedy corporations is I think the real kind of airhead take here, but other stuff like it doesn't come from money printing, that growth in the economy needs the inflation, and denying that it comes from the printing of money, basically. So how do you explain it in a way that would convince people who have such misconceptions about inflation? I'm curious how you did that.
Right. So first of all, I was focusing on the average person, and I felt that the average person wasn't that, they don't have that understanding of inflation. They have no understanding of inflation. So I wanted to be careful not to go and fight on, their battleground for no reason. You know what I mean? And again, like I was mentioning earlier, 99% of people you ask, 99.99, well, if their life would be better with no more inflation, they'd say, absolutely, sign me up, right? But it's that 0.01% that's college educated that was told you need prices to go up so that prices don't go down, because prices going down is really bad, right? That's really what it all rests on. So, hopefully the film baits out somebody that feels that way, and we can discuss it on a podcast. But really, when I come across people like that, I like to go back to Knut's point about things should be getting more efficient, right? And my favorite example is an apple. Like at some point, an apple cost 1 penny, right? Okay, now it costs almost $1. Certainly, we've gotten better at planting and harvesting and transporting, right? Like you don't deny that, right? We're certainly better at that, right? Okay. So why is it $1 right now? And there really is no other answer. There is no other variable in the equation other than the money that you're using, the measuring stick that you're using to price that in. So it has to be more money being created, And those type of people also, they'll say like, oh, but even if money can't be printed and there's a wheat shortage or some disaster, then bread will go up 2 times the price, and that's inflation. Like, okay, that's not inflation. You can call that inflation if you want. I'm not going to call that inflation. That's just the price. It's just supply and demand, period, right? So I don't even entertain that definition. We're living in a fucking day and age where anybody can just change the definition of shit or define things however they want. That's how I'm defining it. Inflation is the increase of dollars, the increase of the monetary units, period. Anyways. Yeah. So again, but that wasn't my target audience, right? I feel like my target audience was more the average person who doesn't really have that misunderstanding yet. So thankfully, I don't have to try to explain all of that. But when I come across somebody like an economist, it's hard for them to argue against, what I just said. But they will somehow. They'll, the pretzel logic. They'll bend their, I don't know, man. It's crazy.
We were talking earlier today about basically all the non-Austrian schools of economics, and like Paul Krugman apparently got into economics because basically he thought he could predict the future through economics, and I mean that fairly literally. Like it says so in on his Wikipedia page that the reason that he got into economics was he was inspired by Isaac Asimov, who had a science fiction book that had a science that could accurately predict the future. And economics was sort of like that. And I think all the economists, other than the Austrians, basically, are trying to do something like this. They're making their models. They're trying to put the world into a particular bubble. And then they're like, well, this is how it should play out. These are the predictions. It should all just work. But they're ignoring reality, basically. And there's just such a blind spot on inflation in general. Like the biggest mind blow for me, I mean, if you can believe it, I still get like just new bits of like, wow, this everything divided by 21 million thing is actually pretty damn cool. It's like it actually works as an equation of you put all of the world's economic units onto one side and all of the stuff onto the other. Well, as we get better, economic growth literally means deflation if you have a fixed denominator. It's just like that came from our chat with Jeff Booth recently. If you haven't seen that one, that honestly, that was probably our best episode of the show ever, because he was just totally on fire. But I don't know what my point was here exactly, except it's just like once you figure it out, you can't unfigure it out. You don't crawl backwards out the rabbit hole, basically. Like once you see it, it's just so damn obvious. And I think the only variable is whether people decide that it's the most important thing in their life, basically. If you make that decision, you basically you become a Bitcoin maxi, like 100%. You put as much energy as possible while surviving and all this into Bitcoin. And if you don't decide this is the most important thing in your life for whatever reason, then maybe you don't do that, but you still see the world through a different lens. I don't know what do you think of that brain fart there?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the problem is so big, it's like you can't see it. You know what I mean? Again, I think it's like gravity. Like imagine if you stepped off a building, right? And you fell off the building. But like that wasn't actually reality. Actually, what was happening is you had like ropes tied around your legs. And anytime you stepped off the building, the ropes would pull you down to the ground, right? And that's inflation. It's just like, that's just what happens in life, prices go up, life gets more difficult. Like I step off the roof and I fucking fall down, but it's like, no, you find Bitcoin and you realize those ropes aren't real life. Like those are, someone is attaching those to you and pulling you down, right? Then all of a sudden, like, oh, I can step off the roof and I can fly. Like, whoa, like, like I think it just, again, it's like an invisible rope, right? You can't even really see it. So I think that's what's happening is it just is treated like like a law of nature, and it's just not questioned whatsoever. And that's why the problem is just you're just so inside of it that you can't see it. And yes, of course, like if you're gambling, if you think another coin has the chance of beating Bitcoin, I mean, I don't know what that is. But otherwise, if you're just gambling on coins, you're not taking responsibility, right? You're not treating the problem seriously. You're not like thinking, okay, well, I need to save as much as I can, like a fucking squirrel or like a grasshopper or whatever, for whatever's coming next. Like, yeah, you just don't get it. And once you do, things make sense, right? And like, I think this is probably what the economists worry about is like you have good money and you're going to want to hold on to it, and you're only going to want to spend it on the things that you really, really, really need. But that's not a fucking bad thing. Like, you shouldn't spend it on stupid things that you don't really need, right? You should spend it on good food, energy, shelter. Like, these things make sense. I would much rather spend double my money on my food, but it being twice as nutrient. You know what I mean? So I think like looking into the future, that's the craziest thing. I think when you start to wrap your head around is what the world is going to look like. And like, we're going to shed so many unnecessary industries and like things and materials. And we're going to focus more on the things that are actually important, because those are the things that Bitcoiners actually will give their Bitcoin for, food, shelter, energy, memories together. And so like, if you look at that Weimar chart, have you seen the price of gold during the like 1919, 1924?
Oh yeah.
I don't want to buy any food in this period. I want to grow my own food and have my own food in this fucking period, because some of those days when you got to eat, that shit might cost you a lot of fucking sats, man, And so, anyways, I think once we get past that volatility, we're going to stabilize in a more natural world where we value things that are better for our health. But that path, man, I don't know what that path's going to look like. I want to just be able to spend as little of my sats as possible to survive, and ideally strengthen myself up to a point where I can help others survive, sell them food, whatever, there's a reason why the farmers get the finger pointed at them when the fucking money is collapsing, it's because they got the shit that you really, really, really need, and they know they can charge you for it. And then the government says, look at those greedy fucking assholes, and then you get screwed. So yeah, there's my brain fart. I don't even know how those connected together.
No, man, I love it. And the funny thing is, like, I can't wait for example, Greta Thunberg to figure out that Bitcoin is actually the thing that was going to solve all of her climate change problems all along. Like, first of all, it's just going to make people, it's going to fix the overconsumption problems. Resource allocation is going to get fixed. And maybe they'll still find out that the whole climate change movement is a bit of a scam. But anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, I just can't wait until like the leftists railing against climate change basically figure out that Bitcoin, who are saying that Bitcoin is like this environmental disaster, find out that it's the solution all along. Anyway, that's all I got there.
It's absolutely the solution. Like, because the opposite of the opposite of quality is equality and not inequality. Like, you can only
you mix that up. It's
I'm mixing it up now. Yeah.
The opposite of equality is not inequality. It's quality.
It's quality. The opposite of equality is quality. And like the environmental problem is overconsumption. If there is an environmental problem, it's just that, and you can't fix anything within this system that has inflationary money. It's impossible. And it's like, back to these basic questions, like what is everything in the world? Its price is derived from supply and demand, and supply is objective, demand is subjective. And with Bitcoin, you have there's an absolute limit to the supply side. So what you end up with is inevitably everything divided by 21 million. There's no way around that. And that is going to outperform everything else. and then it doesn't matter if Bitcoin uses as much energy as country X. You know, shut down country X. Then it's not needed anymore. Like that's. I mean, I can't think of it any other way than that. I mean, I can't frame it in any other way.
Yeah, Norway's pretty useless.
If they really cared about
Sorry,
the
Mr. Cat.
climate,
Yeah.
they would demand the government require a Bitcoin miner on every fucking flare stack. You know, like I think the methane that those flares emit are like much more damaging than all of the CO2 and everything like that. So if they really cared, like they could just use a solution like that. But yeah, you're right. The consumerism obviously would, and like, what's consumption in war? It's like blowing shit up, and then you got to rebuild that shit too. It's like, it's consumption is a crazy fucking thing, man. And yeah, like you're saying, like you take the money variable out of a trade with Bitcoin, right? It's purely supply and demand with Bitcoin. With fiat, it's supply and demand divided by all the fucking money in the world, basically, And yeah, go ahead, Knut.
No, I was not going to interrupt you, but while I'm at it, I might as well. Like the price signal is what prevents resource misallocation. If you have correct prices, then resources don't get misallocated, and this is why socialism fails. It's not because of an incentive problem; it's because of a pricing signal problem. If the prices are wrong, so that you prioritize the wrong things, resources get misallocated. This is the root of any environmental problem. It's the misallocation of resources. And if we want what's the correct allocation? It's what people want, like what all people want, and how much energy and effort they put in to get that thing that they want. So, what other metric can you measure something like that by? Like, otherwise, it's just some asshole imposing his will on everyone else.
Right. And that's what I was going to say. It's like Luke's thing about like the guy playing God, thinking that you know what the future is supposed to be or what's best for everybody, and you just can't do it. Like, like an octopus has brains all over its tentacles. It'd be like, okay, octopus, you're not going to use those brains on your tentacles anymore. We just got one right here, and we know better than what you could fucking possibly know all the way at the end of the tentacles doing your own thing. Like, no, we can decide better than you, right? No, let the fucking octopus have its brains in its tentacles, like let us be our own brains. Let us determine what's best for us on the ground right here. Don't try to look from fucking 30,000 feet. Because, dude, people are so detached. Like the TradFi people that I see getting into Bitcoin, they're like, yeah, inflation's bad, but it's not that bad. I still see people out there spending. Like the shopping mall still got people in it. I'm like, dude, are you so disconnected that you really don't know what's going on here? And they really don't, dude.
No.
So you couple that with this godlike desire or think you have this power to know what's supposed to happen, and you take away all the brains on the fucking octopus. It's fucking retarded.
Yeah. A thought just struck me. Do octopi masturbate? And if so, how? And do they use their brain or all their brains? This is a brain fart. Yes.
I mean, they're aliens, so whatever they do it better than us, man.
I mean, 8 arms, brains everywhere. Like that sounds like they have a good time to me.
Yeah. It seems like they can stimulate and understand the stimulation better than anything in the world. Fucking aliens, man.
Yeah. Shooter, hey, I think we are super excited now, and I hope everyone listening to this and watching this is excited to go check out your film, No More Inflation. And hey, what's next for you? What's coming up on the horizon? Are you still just working on getting this thing out as far as possible, or is there something else coming up, or what's next for you?
Yeah, it's just really getting this thing out there as much as possible. So really the focus right now is just to get as many people to watch it, So if you haven't watched it, go watch it. If you've watched it, share it with somebody. You never know what door that's going to open, what person they know, what connection that's going to make. At the end of the day, the goal has always been with this project to have as many people trip down the rabbit hole as possible. And for a selfish reason, like I want the transition from fiat to Bitcoin to be as smooth as it possibly can. And I know that the stronger, the more people have Bitcoin, the more decentralized the wealth is, the more strongholds we're going to have, and the smoother the transition is going to be. So this was me being infected by Bitcoin, asking myself, what can I do? And putting it out there to, make my contribution and make it known. And so again, I'm just going to beat the drum, because everybody knows you can make something that's great, but if nobody knows about it, then you need it to get seen. So I feel like half the battle is done. I'm open to any ideas that anyone has to show it to more people. People in other countries have been doing screenings. I'm totally cool with that. I want to do them in colleges. I want to again, more. That's the only thing that needs to happen. More people need to see this, and it's going to open the right door. And then, you'll see me on Joe Rogan. You'll see it on HBO. You'll see it on Netflix, something like that. And, I really believe if this message gets out there, this orange pill of this is what inflation is, this is what it looks like, this is what it's paying for, this is how it ends, this is why it's happening, this is why Bitcoin fixes it, this is why maybe the energy shit you heard is wrong, the crime stuff, the volatility, and ultimately, you need to take responsibility. I think if 200 million people get that message, we might actually actually have an impact, in the world, quickly. Otherwise, Bitcoin will continue to do its thing, and people will get in at the price that they deserve. But anyway, this is me, again, just fulfilling that obligation, I guess, that Bitcoin kind of implanted in me of hey, do something. This is important. You should do something. And so, yeah, we'll just see where this takes me, and we'll go from there. Who knows what's going to come next, but I'm absolutely grateful for the journey I've already had. I mean, honestly, you guys too, man, all the time we spend together, and Knut, you have a cameo in the film too, and just a little B-roll shot of you. So it's, it really, the journey was the best part about this. So no matter what happens, man, it's a dream come true. So anyway, nomoreinflation.com, go check it out. And I honestly really do appreciate you guys, man, a lot. Really, it means a lot to me. Thank you.
Right back at you, dude. And make this a tradition. Watch it every holiday season, I'd say. It's worth rewatching for sure. Shooter, anywhere else you want to send our listeners than Bitcoin, than nomoreinflation.com?
Yeah, Twitter or X at Bitcoin Shooter, and that's it.
And make sure to shoot Shooter some sets and see the movie.
There you go.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Dude, great to have you here. This has been the Bitcoin Infinity Show. What? No, I'm not going to do your part, Luke. You have to do it.
Well, yeah, and we're changing it anyway, so it doesn't even matter. But hey, man, I just echoing what Knut said, really appreciate you. Glad we could have you on. I hope this gives you a signal boost. And honestly, we have one place where we maybe can do another signal boost of the film. We are on the organizational team for BTC Hell in Helsinki this August. There's a movie theater in the conference venue. We would love to screen No More Inflation during the conference. If you would like.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Awesome.
And we'd love to have you at the
details.
conference, of course, even more importantly.
That was what I...
Yeah, we'll see how it goes, man. I got to catch up on some of this fiat work, dude. The project was really great, but now it's going to conferences had a purpose, and now it's kind of I want to go to see everybody and have a good time. It's just I got to balance the opportunity risk, and really the next mission is starting a family. The real challenge begins. So that's going to be my main focus. But of course, man, love for you guys to screen it. You have my blessing, and if I can make it out there, I'll definitely be there.
Fantastic, and hope it's not too long before we see you in person if it's not there. But,
are you going to Colombia or El Salvador anytime soon? By the way,
I won't be there. Okay. Playing catch up, man. Life's catching up with me.
Yeah. Well, we'll see you when we see you. Great having you on anyway, and all the best.
You too. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Shooter. Till next time.